for you. You better lock up your cars and trucks because guess what? Auto thefts are on the rise once again.
And for another year, the thieves are consistent in their preference for one particular type of vehicle. News 13's David Romero is live in downtown Albuquerque with details. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Elizabeth. Well, that is the Ford F-250 full-size pickup. That's number one on that list. And it's sad to say, if you're one of those owners, you better do everything you can and take every precaution you can to make sure it's locked up and safe in your driveway or garage and out of the hands of thieves. Now, the latest data from the Highway Loss Data Institute shows for the years 2010 through 2012, the F-250 ranks highest on the top 10 trucks and stolen SUVs. As you can see from the list on your screen, it's not one particular model or brand that thieves are after. It ranges from everything from Ford to Chevy to Cadillac. Now remember, there are several things you can do to protect yourself from falling prey to a vehicle thief. Those include the obvious: locking the car doors, never leaving it running unattended in the driveway or anywhere else. You can also activate the alarm or install one on the car if it didn't come with it in the first place. Now, according to crimemapping.com, there have been more than 50 vehicle thefts in the Albuquerque area in just the last week alone. Now, we did not get a specific response from APD as to which specific vehicles are being targeted in the area, but again, that's an alarming rate that this is happening here in the Duke City. And of course, another thing you want to remember is that once thieves have access to your car, they have access to everything inside. So that means you should lock up any valuables you have, iPods, anything like that. Make sure you take them out of the car with you when you're going to be gone for an extended period of time. You also want to make sure that you don't leave any personal documents in there that have a lot of your critical personal information. That may be social security cards or credit cards. And of course, do something to stash that garage door opener because, again, once they have access to your car, they have access to the opener and then access to your house. You could lose a whole lot more. Elizabeth, back to you.
So true. That is a scary thought, David. Thank you for all that information. Yeah. If you want to get a better look at the crime map that David referred to in his story, you can find a link to it attached to his story at KRQE.com. Just go under KRQE links. They also include, by the way, statistics for all different types of crimes in the Albuquerque area. Well, here is something that has become quite the talker. Last month, the New Mexico Activities Association changed its rules to accommodate transgender students in school sports and other activities.
But some are now saying this new policy does not go far enough. The new rules say students can play sports and be involved in other activities based on the gender on their birth certificate or their amended birth certificate. Now, amending a birth certificate means getting a letter from the doctor who performed the gender reassignment surgery.
We think that athletics and activity is good for all kids. And so we're always going to go with that. It is good for all kids, be it male, be it female, be it transgender male, be it transgender female.
Some transgender students say the rules don't go far enough, though. They argue students should be allowed to compete as a male or female depending on how they view themselves. You can see more of the story from Dean Staley tonight at 9 o'clock on 2 Casa Fox. 6:04 now. The former Albuquerque children's pastor, the one who was popped for child porn, now admits he did it.
Yeah, now he could spend the next 8 years in prison. Late last year, the feds arrested Derek Schwartzrock. They say he downloaded and shared 12,000 photos of naked boys online. At the time, he worked at the Evangel Christian Center over off of Montgomery and Jefferson. He was fired shortly after his arrest. Well, yesterday in federal court, Schwartzrock pled guilty to 1 count of receiving child porn. Now, no cameras were allowed in the courtroom, but we understand he cried as he admitted what he did.
He is so sorry for what he did, and that's why he broke down, in my opinion.
Schwartzrock will be sentenced to more than 8 years in federal lockup. Well, if you are looking for a job, there are a couple of metro area job fairs happening today that we want to let you know about. At least 17 local entities, including government, healthcare, investment, beverage, and food industry companies, have all been invited to a job fair today that is being hosted by State Senator Michael Padilla. It gets started at 10 this morning. It runs until 2. It's over at the Harrison Middle School. The address 3912 Isleta Boulevard Southwest, and that is behind the South Valley Library. And the New Mexico Broadcasters Association also holding a job fair. This one's a virtual job fair. It's happening today. There are jobs in news, advertising, sales, promotions, engineering and business administration. You can log on to broadcastersvirtualjobfair.com to get all the information about the kinds of jobs available in the local broadcasting industry, including right here at KRQE.
Happening now at 6:06, a mixed unemployment picture for teens. New government data shows U.S. companies added 215,000 teenagers to their payrolls in May. That is the best May for that since 2006. However, fewer 16 to 19-year-olds were hired in this June, compared to a year ago. Experts say teens are facing stiff competition in the job market from both college grads and retirees going back to work. New Mexico is not going to make a quick decision when it comes to taking in radioactive waste from another state, a lot of it too. New Mexico's Environment Secretary says the state needs to consider what the public wants before it approves the Federal Department of Energy's request to modify the permit at WIPP, the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant. If approved, WIPP would take in more than 3 million gallons of waste from Washington state. Well, the cleanup continues in Santa Fe this morning.
Yeah, heavy rains and flash floods left a mess there on Monday. Some areas got up to 1.5 inches of rain, sending walls of water as high as about 8 feet rushing through arroyos. Now, the flood surge swept away a 51-year-old woman by the name of Tina Vigil, whose body was later found pushed up against a tree, sadly. It is not clear how she got in the water in the first place, but arroyos are always a dangerous place to be this time of year.
It can be raining in one part of town and not in another part of town, but that water is eventually going to make its way through the arroyos to the part that didn't maybe see rain during the initial storm.
Rain runoff also got into Santa Fe's Lafarge Branch Library and soaked up the carpet, but did not damage books or computers. The library, by the way, still open. Miles of the Rio Grande now reduced to muddy pools. It's left many fish high and dry, including the endangered silvery minnow. Biologists have been scrambling to try and salvage as many of the federally protected fish as possible. Their numbers have dropped to their lowest levels in 20 years because of the lack of reproduction and other factors, including drought. The federal government has spent more than $150 million over the past decade trying to keep the minnow alive. Those little tiny silverfish that you see.
Very much so. I ran over the river yesterday. I saw this. It's the saddest thing. The water there is only a couple inches deep in places. The geese are just walking right across it. And there are these big kind of mud islands, if you want to call them, right in the middle. The water's at its lowest level in decades.
Yeah, that's kind of depressing right there.
It is. We just need all the rain we can get.